Well, if you want to reduce insulin resistance, you got to stop eating this. So don't do this. If you want to stop doing this or eating this, you can't keep it in the house. Do not lie to yourself to convince yourself that you can keep this kind of stuff in the house and that you'll not eat it or resist it. Now, there is one caveat to this, one hack that you could do. We have a freezer in the garage. If I keep ice cream this is keto, by the way. This is like very low sugar. It's pretty good. It's not super sweet. If I keep this in the freezer out there, I actually just usually forget. It's almost like I keep it out of my brain. And so I don't go for it. I just go for the one upstairs. I even have a fridge downstairs. So if I put it in the fridge downstairs, I'm just miles less likely, further away from eating this because I don't think about it. And it's not just right there. It's not easy to grab. You have to keep it out of your environment. So that's the first lesson. And if you don't want to eat something, don't buy it. Don't keep it at home. And if you want to reduce insulin resistance, which is what this video is about, then don't do this. So I'm going to go probably throw this away. Be right back. Okay, I finished that. Oh, I got chocolate on my table. No. How to reverse insulin resistance fast. And then I'm going to give you some tips for doing that. I wanted to make this video because it's almost kind of funny to me. Or it's almost a parody. It's not a parody because I'm serious with this topic. But you see a lot of these videos that, people, they go to YouTube, they type something in, they have a problem or whatever, and these videos pop up. They're very Google friendly, but they're usually very formulaic, boring, and in sometimes misleading. Some cases misleading. So for something like this, one of the top results on Google that shows up, and so the actual search engine, you see like 14 ways to reduce insulin resistance or whatever. And some of the recommendations are like adding cinnamon to things and taking a swig of apple cider. I think this is nonsense, okay? Because these things are going to have minor, like small itty bitty effects, if they even do that. And some of the research that's used to base cinnamon or apple cider as a means to reduce insulin resistance, I would be very suspect of that research. Now, I haven't read the research. I think apple cider is good. Generally, I drink some for gut health here and there. I think it's probably overhyped. I do like it for certain skin things. But again, I just think it's a very low percentage thing because here's the reality about it. If you want to reverse your insulin resistance fast or do anything with your health, if you're not doing the most impactful things, like the things that contribute to insulin resistance, like if you don't fix those, then all the little small band-aids you try to do or take on or put on is going to be meaningless. It's just a waste of time. You shouldn't even worry about it. Focus on the one or two big things that actually matter. For insulin resistance specifically, I'm not going to really explain it much. Okay. Insulin resistance is pretty much precursor to every disease. All right. If you're overweight, you're insulin resistant in some way. Okay. If you have insulin sensitivity, it basically means your body uses insulin, doesn't have to overproduce it, which doesn't lead to a bunch of other things like fatty liver. And they now believe that Alzheimer's is like diabetes 3. You want to be as insulin sensitive as possible. And if you're struggling with certain things in your health, a lot of these can be stress related or, certain weight in certain areas or just different problems in your health that you can't really identify. Insulin resistance is probably going to be playing a role in that in some way. All right. It's just one of those universal things. I mean, insulin is a necessary hormone. You die if your body isn't using it properly. And if you have too much or too little, you need medical intervention. Now that I've given you kind of my disclaimer to this, all right, I'm going to give you some tips. Now, if you want to add cinnamon to things, and if you want to take a swig of apple cider vinegar or whatever here and there, that's fine. But don't convince yourself it's going to do anything, literally anything at all, compared to doing these big, I would say 5 or 6 tips that I have right here. All right, these things that you must do. The first most important thing you must do is you must focus on a low carb diet and you must remove all highly refined, highly palatable processed grains and sugar. If you're a subscriber, you already know this. Okay. If you're new here, then you should watch some of my other videos to get an idea of why that's the case. I could end the video right here. And if you did just this one thing, you'd be good. You won't have to worry about apple cider vinegar or cinnamon or any other things that are basically a distraction from that core thing. Focus on removing your high carb diet, right? Eating more fat and protein, and especially removing processed, refined grains and sugar. And of course, seed oils, they contribute to for sure. So you have a low carb, low sugar, no sugar diet, and low to no vegetable oil, seed oils. I probably should have added that, but let's just add it there at the end. That's number one. That's the most important, impactful thing that you can do. Okay. This will solve literally so many problems. If you want to lose weight, you'll lose weight. If you want a better sex life, a better sex life. If you want to sleep better, you'll sleep better. If you want to think better, you'll think better. It'll do everything. All right. 2, prioritize protein. Now, this is almost like 1A because when you lower carbs and sugar, you need to replace it with something. And if you go just to straight fat sources and you don't really have the quality quotient of your diet dialed in, then you're probably going to eat some not great foods. If you focus on protein, however, which, ideally from the animal kingdom, protein is the most satiating nutrient. It helps displace other things, helps control appetite. And that's why generally most people don't eat enough of it because it's harder to put down. We can just eat fat all day long. It's very rewarding. We can eat carbs all day long. It's very rewarding. Those were survival mechanisms, okay, for our species. I won't get into any of that. Low carb, low sugar, no grains, nothing refined, right? And then prioritize protein with removing those carbs. You got to add in something else, so protein. And then, of course, the gaps, the rest that you'll fill out your diet will be healthy fats. That's 1 and 2. Number 3, depending on your activity level, this will have a bigger or smaller response towards this end of, reducing insulin resistance, okay? It just depends on how active you already are. But if you're not already taking a daily walk and you're not moving just in general or whatever, then a 30-minute walk a day will be a game changer. I've already been telling people this, that even if you're a healthy, functional human and you're not taking a 30-minute walk a day, ideally in sunlight with no sunglasses, you have a huge gap in your routine right now. Low carb, low sugar, no refined grains, get rid of the seed oils, prioritize protein, a daily walk, plus more movement. Number 4, cook real food at home. If you try to do what I'm doing, you remove the carbs, the sugar, you prioritize protein, but you're eating out of packages, or you're going to like that hot bar at even at some place like Whole Foods that you think it's healthy, except they use canola oil and everything, and it's cooked like it's just garbage. You need to prepare your own meals at home. That's the only way you can control the cooking method, the cooking oils, the seasonings, the salts, etc. Cook your food at home. You will remove so much toxicity from your life because they won't slip in through all that processed, corporate-made, restaurant-made food. Number 5, stretch, stand, or do other things instead of sitting on the couch. So I have a standing desk. I actually have a treadmill right there. At night, I like to read, take notes, and then I have my red light going. I take my daily 30-minute walk. I try to, even from my desk upstairs, which is also a standing desk, I try to make sure I'm standing as much as possible. And then you can oscillate between standing and sitting. That's fine. If you're watching a show, lay on the ground, do some push-ups right here. Maybe do a glute stretch or some other stretches, or do like a couple yoga poses. Do a couple planks. Adding a little bit of extra movement to your life when you otherwise would have not moved. I mean, we're talking huge differences over time. The more you move, the more natural you will be, the more you will fight insulin resistance. Last one, utilize intermittent fasting, IF. My favorite way to do this is to skip breakfast and do just like straight coffee. And then I break my fast, 4 to 8 hours, depending on the day, after waking up. And then I'll have another second smaller meal. So I'm doing kind of like a 1.5 meals a day. And then I'm done eating until I repeat the process again. And there's a bunch of videos that I have on that on my channel and all over YouTube, whatever. But generally, you're trying to increase the amount of time you go without ingesting calories because that lets your hormones kind of come down and stabilize, right? And then when you are eating, you're keeping that within a window so that you can then go back to a longer fasting window, and you repeat that every single day. So these are just a few tips that should come as no surprise, are also the foundation of a healthy human animal and diet and what you should do anyways. So if you don't necessarily have an insulin resistance problem and you're not doing some of these, well, you know exactly what you should be focusing on. And I will say there is one thing that I did forget. It requires its own video, but it's stress mitigation. We struggle with understanding because it's hard to quantify these. Like, it's hard to say, well, I'm stressed. I had 100 points of stress this week and I want to get that down to 70 points. And I got to do all these different, like, it's too broad of a category. And there's too much subconscious going on and too much like where we forget that we got mad because somebody cut us off or whatever, or we got impatient about this thing that's not working out the way we wanted. Like, stress is just one of those things that is a very broad category and it's very hard to diagnose. Things like meditation, mindfulness, exercise, cold therapy, hot therapy, sauna, like getting a massage, being self-aware, asking yourself questions, having conversations that you don't want to have and getting them over with so you don't have to have anxiety about them. Like, there's so many things and it's so dependent on the person that I can't really give you advice for that or even address it in a short YouTube video. But being aware of the times you're getting stressed, that's probably what I would say. Catch yourself. getting impatient or stressed. And then bring yourself to your breath and then remind yourself, that's not conducive for my health. That's not conducive for my weight. That's not conducive for my insulin resistance or my sensitivity. Every single time, I remember this quote a long time ago, every time you get kind of peeved or upset or mad, it's like taking a bite of a candy bar. You're releasing cortisol and you're probably even releasing insulin. So it's definitely not good for insulin resistance. You'll have to figure out what strategies help you the most and do more of that. And you'll have to make a conscious effort to continually be aware of your mindset and aware of how you're responding to the environment and take back control how you respond. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, this is Stoicism 101. This is Psychology 101, Philosophy 101. That's it I got for today's video. I'll see you in the next one. Hey, Colin here. Got a freebie for you. Click on the button below to go to theancestralmind.com and download the 7 Principles of Living Wild. This is a short PDF that's got some of the main principles, such as real food, sleep, movement, and a couple more that are going to help you live more ancestrally in accordance with your genes.